Now let's continue the conversation with Liu Jiajun in Haining City. He's an associate professor at Jiajun University International Business School. Professor Liu, thank you for joining us on the show. We saw the success of local businesses here in China. Now, the National Bureau of Statistics says China's production supply rose steadily while employment and prices remained generally stable. Your assessment on this?
Well, thanks for the question. Overall, I would say these are quite encouraging numbers. You really see both stability and momentum coming through. So let me get started with the production side. The industrial output grew like 4.5% on a yearly basis in May, and which is actually 0.4 points, faster than the months before. But what matters even more here is the structure. The equipment, the manufacturing was up like 9.5%, and then the high-tech manufacturing grew even more than 15%. So if we look at the products like the industrial robots, 3D printing equipment, and their output was growing by 30 and 40, even 50%. So this is really just not growth by the volume. The quality of that growth is improving, which is really important. And also services hold up well too. So with the production index up, 4.4%, and modern services like IT and finance growing in double digits as well. And also let's turn to what people care more about, the jobs and prices. So the surveyed urban unemployment rate came down to 5.1%, 0.1% like lower than April. So I would say that the job market is quite holding up. And on prices, the CPI roses are like, a mild 1.2% with core inflation at 1.1. So I would say there exists no deflation pressure and honestly, no real inflation either. Fairly comfortable zone. So of course, there's still room for the consumer demand to further recover. But all in all, I would say the economy as a whole kept up like steady and higher quality momentum in May. Thank you.
Well, Professor Liu, officials also noted that the resilience of China's foreign trade continues to emerge, with new growth drivers gaining strength there. Given the current global instability, how can China continue to leverage, this advantage of its socialist system to ensure the stability, sustainable improvement, and overall development of the national economy?
Well, thank you for this question. I think it's really important point to let me explain that. So I think that's really important. So the foreign trade has actually been a really highlight this year. In May, the goods imports and exports grew nearly 17% on a yearly basis, and that pace was 2.7 points faster than the previous months. From what I said, I would say, for the first 5 months together, growth was over 15%. And given the external environmental right now, that kind of resilience is really not easy to achieve. So what's more, the structure keeps improving, and trade with about one Belt One Road partner countries grow as well, almost like 14%. Exports of machinery and electronics were up more than 18%, and private companies grow as well. So to me, that tells our markets are getting more and more diversified, and the eternal momentum behind trade is getting even stronger. So now I would say, how do we keep this growing? Well, this is exactly where our institutional advantages come in. First, the microeconomic policy can be coordinated and act with very timely focus. And also we could say, we have a super large domestic market, and we are now speeding up with the building of a unified national market. So we could just use the domestic demand to offset this, external uncertainty. And also third, we are developing new quality productive forces based on the local conditions. So nurturing innovations as a new growth driver as well. And I think lastly, if we can get this right, I'm quite confident that in China, we can achieve stable and sustainable, growth. Thank you.
Thank you so much for analysis, Professor Liu Jiajun from Zhejiang University.